we go. So the things that the muscles involved in the TMJ can affect is blurry vision, coughing, dizziness, itchy ears, stuffy ears, extra phlegm or mucus, eyelid drop, twitchy eye, hearing loss, imbalance, malocclusion of the teeth, migraine headaches, nausea, trouble in biting down or swallowing, limited range of motion in the jaw, neck rotation limited, sideways flexion limited, blocked sinuses, sore throat, stiff neck, difficulty in swallowing, teary eyes, tenderness in the scalp and the head, tooth sensitivity, trigeminal neuralgia, which is the nerve in the jaw, vertigo, visual disturbances, and vocal tension, hoarseness in the voice. So there's a lot of things there that can be caused by these muscles being out of balance. So what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to do an assessment. So just sort of maybe just gently, you probably know if you've got TMJ, you probably already know what side it's on, but just do a sort of a gentle massage and maybe clench your teeth, bite down, and maybe just open the mouth and just see, can you decide if it's worse on one side than the other? So that's usually the case. So if it's the right side, then that can be caused by, again, there's another list of all the different things that can cause it. It can be caused by going to the dentist, which is the #1 cause, opening the mouth too much or having fillings or teeth removed that changes the bite. So you get malocclusion and then that upsets all the muscles in the jaw and the face. It can be caused by a virus. It can be caused by a cough. It can be caused by a hangover, overexertion, just being tired. Allergies can set the nerves off and affect the muscles. Different medications can cause it. Tension, so we tend to, clench our jaw when we're tense. We tend to grind our teeth as well at night time sometimes if we're tense. Any sort of trauma, so that would be tension again. Fibromyalgia is an array of issues throughout the whole body, and the jaw would be one of those that would be affected. So if it's the right side of the jaw, it's going to be caused by one of those many insults to the jaw. If it's on the left side, then that's quite an interesting study then, because if it's on the left side jaw, it could be your gallbladder. So there's a nerve that is comes from the gallbladder through the diaphragm and then up the brachial chain into the neck, the jaw, and the side of the face. So if you've got any sort of gallbladder issues, then it could be referring pain into the jaw, the neck, even the shoulder, anything through that side, through that pathway through the nervous system. So if it is, then maybe just get your gallbladder checked and just see if there's not something going on there. Some of the things that you can do just even before you start looking at trigger points is some rule of thumb. If it's on the right side, maybe you start by addressing the left side. So often you get opposite side reactions in the body to do with the brain and the nervous system. So if it's the right side, maybe you would start looking at the left side jaw. The TMJ is your temporal, so temporal muscle is here. Mandibular means jaw, so it's the hinge of the jaw and the muscles of the hinge of the jaw. So it's this whole complex here. And the jaw, holds a lot of tension, huge amount of tension here. And the tension is not so much in the opening of the mouth, but in the bite. So that's why going to the dentist makes quite a difference because, sorry, I got my paper blown away because the door's open, because it changes the bite and then the muscles start to fire up incorrectly and cause a whole load of problems. So, so let's just, one of the simple things you can do is to say it was this side, so right side, you can make a really soft fist, put your fingers on the right side jaw. So if it's the left side, do it the other way around. So you're going to put your finger on the hinge of the jaw. And then with the other side, you're just going to make a soft fist, and you're going to use the heel of your hand, and you're just going to tap the jaw 3 times, and you should feel it sort of vibrating into that opposite hinge. Just stop for a minute. So that tapping is a subtle message, and it's sending shock waves through the jaw into the joint just to balance and release tension in the hinges of the jaw. So you can do it sort of inwards, so coming in towards the mouth, 1, 2, 3. So you don't want to be rough, but you just want to feel the vibration in the hinge. So the jaw comes through here and it hinges here. And you could also do a sort of a little thump upwards towards the eye. So maybe you have got a little bit of something going on, and you just try tapping it. Or you could try it the other way around. So it's the heel of the hand, so you don't hurt anything. And just hitting the what's called the ramus, the flat part of the bone of the jaw. You can really feel that vibrating into the opposite joint. So that's a quick fix. That's a really quick fix. Another thing you can do is you can hold your chin and you can stretch your mouth open and then close, and do that 4 or 5 times. So you're just stretching these muscles. So like I said, the tension comes from the bite. So if you do the opposite movement to address the opposing muscles, so the muscles that open the jaw rather than muscles that close the jaw, you can sometimes just release tension. We sort of do that when we're yawning as well. The yawn is all part of the reflex through the vagal system that releases tension in the body, but especially in the jaw. Another thing we could do is we could do a vagal release. I'm going to use my little finger because I've got fairly long nails. And you're going to go into the whole of the ear, and you're going to go slightly upwards and slightly backwards. And you're going to, maybe I'll do it this side. No, I did this side. Push against the bone of the skull. So there's one of the branches of the vagal system comes into the ear. So it's all in this region of the TMJ region. And you're just pressing for about 30 seconds. So you're just messaging the nerves in this area to talk to the brain, to balance, to let go of tension. You can do them both at the same time, but then you can't hear anything. So, and it's quite good to do one side because then you can just really focus on that one side. I got the swallow then. Sometimes it's subtle. Unless you're really taking notice, you might miss the swallow or the yawn. And I can feel the yawn also at the back of the throat. And then you go above the whole of the ear to the second, there's an indentation above it. So there's a ridge, second indentation. You're pushing upwards and slightly backwards against the skull. Not a huge pressure, but just enough to press on the nerve. So the nerve comes out from the brainstem, and then it sort of branches out into the ears and the eyes, into the throat, and then down through the body into the rest of the body. So that's something you could try. I'm going to do the other side. Also, this is going to bring us into that nice, alert, receptive state of mind so that our brain is really listening and understanding these very complex ideas. But sometimes you look at the opposite side of the body to find the answers. If it's the left side, then maybe think, could it have a connection to my gallbladder? So whole of the ear, and then you're going above the ridge into the second indentation, you're pressing again. So again, I got the swallow quite quickly. Nice big sigh. So the body's just touch base with the brain, and it's just the vagal system's talking to the brain. The brain has come right back into that perfect parasympathetic nervous state of calmness, relaxing. So parasympathetic is where we relax, we digest, we rest, we socially engage. So we're going to look at 5 muscle groups for the TMJ. So the pterygoid is, if we were to make a sort of a V at the hinge of the jaw, the pterygoid is going to be the upper and the lower, and then there's another one that goes this way. So we're going to come into the middle. So I'm going to do the left side, but you can choose whichever side you want. We'll do both. Take one finger and then put a second finger on top of it. So it's like a cross finger so that the finger doesn't get tired. You could use a knobbler. You certainly could use a knobbler, but just be gentle if it's not fingers, because there's some really important nerves that go into the face. You could use a soft ball or a harder ball. So I've got a variety of balls here, depending on where it is and how it feels. So you've got the V, you're going to go into the middle of the V. So you'll feel there's a little indentation there. You're going to apply a second finger, and it's usually very, very painful in here. So you'll get quite a sharp pain. So certainly a sharp pain. Okay. And you're just going to press. So we're going to do it 20, 30 seconds. So you could do them both at the same time. But I'm finding that's taking the pain too high in the brain. So I'm going to do just one side. I'll move my camera back a bit. So you can put your elbow on the desk that's in front of you for support, and you could just gently lean your head into that. So you want to be about a 6 out of 10 in terms of pain. You can explore the area. So you've got the indentation between the V. You could go slightly above it and slightly below it, and just explore and find where it's most painful. So for me, there's the upper one, there's the indentation, the lower one for me is really quite unhappy. And I've had toothache in one tooth on this side. So you can see how this feeds into toothache, and toothache would feed into this. So it becomes a sort of a loop and through the nervous system. So then you get your trigger points firing up because, there's a problem ongoing and it's not resolving. So sometimes toothache can be caused by trigger points. I've had that before, where I thought I had toothache. I looked at the masseters, which are the next group we're looking at, and immediately the toothache disappeared. So toothache is not always toothache. It might be trigger points. But if you have got a toothache, it might fire up the trigger points in the nerve. So, sort of try and think outside the box. So this is your lateral pterygoid. So it's the muscles at the hinge of the jaw. So then we've got a medial pterygoid, which is the one. So if you've got the V-shaped muscles, we've got one that cuts across. So you come into the indentation and then you come forward a little bit, 2 fingers, and just see. So yeah, definitely got something going on here. So again, you're going to get the referral as well. So I can feel this one into the eye, into the skull. So sometimes our headaches are coming from these sort of things. So migraines can be caused by TMJs, syndromes. We've got lots of nerves in the face as well. So the temporomandibular nerve, trigeminal nerve, I should say. It's quite a big nerve and it has a lot of influence in the face. And this is easing already. It's actually getting better quite quickly. You could also try a little bit of torsion by opening the mouth a little bit. If you're not sure where the muscles are, bite down on your teeth, and as you clench your jaw, the muscle jumps up. So then you can find the muscle quite easily. Okay, so let's come to the other side. So we've got the little V-shaped muscles at the hinge of the jaw. So the hinge is in the middle of the indentation. So let's just find the hinge of the jaw, come into the little indentation in front of it, add a second finger, and just explore that area. And for me, there's tension here as well. So, if you grind your teeth at night, if you clench your jaw, you can have tension in these muscles. We talk. If you're talking a lot, then these muscles are working all the time. Not quite as bad as the other side where I've got the toothache, but there's definitely something going on here as well. So then you've got the muscle slightly above the indentation. So that one feels fine. And you've got the muscle underneath. This one, not so much. So it looks like that. So you've got an upper one and a superior and an inferior one. So you try them both. The superior is above, the inferior is below the indentation. So again, I can feel this one's really tight. I can feel it into the eye, into the skull. You could try them both if you think you can handle that amount of feedback into the brain. No, I think I'll stay with one. Open and close. Clench the teeth. If you're not sure, bite down and you'll find the muscle. And then the next one, the medial pterygoid, sort of connects the superior and inferior muscles. So you're coming from the indentation just slightly forward, add a second finger. And again, this one is particularly nasty. So these are sort of silent muscles. Hey, they're a little bit like some of the big muscles in the legs. You don't know there's a problem until you start to touch them. And then you suddenly realize there's a whole world of pain here. And so you've got choices. You can do ischemic pressure where you're cutting off the blood supply, or if it's really, really painful and it's actually, you know, hard to bear, then just do 12 rinsing strokes. So as you do these 12 rinsing strokes, you're just pushing blood and lymph through the muscle. You're removing toxins in the muscle, bringing in fresh blood supply and lymph, and just helping the pain receptors in this area to calm down a little bit. And maybe you would go away, do some other trigger point, and then come back to it at the end of the session when you've got a few endorphins there and the pain receptors have calmed down a bit. And then you could try the ischemic pressure, or maybe do it over a few days until eventually, you know, your pain threshold comes down, and then you can actually target the trigger points. So some of these triggers are really, really painful. Also, when you do these, you can do it from the inside of the mouth. So if you were to put your thumb inside your mouth, you can aim the thumb up. So that's the superior pterygoid, into the middle. So that's the hinge. And then you can aim down, which is the inferior. And again, the nerves in this area are quite closely connected to the gag reflex as well. So if you find yourself gagging slightly, just push your tongue into the roof of the mouth, and that should calm down that reflex, or just don't do it from the mouth. So you're working upwards towards the hinge. I can't talk much while I do this, but it's very sore here. And then towards the ear. And then down towards the earlobe. So when I do that, it's the upper one, which wasn't that reactive from the outside, but I can feel it from the inside. This is very deep, this part of the body, so right into the deep part of the jaw. So just doing this in the evenings, you know, if you just sat there, you could just gently work through the inside of the mouth. I'm going to do this side because we didn't do the other side. So we're going upwards towards the temple, inwards towards the middle of the ear, and slightly downwards towards the earlobe. Completely different feedback on this side. So going inside, it was really painful on this side for some reason, but not the toothache side. Didn't really make a lot of difference. So the second muscle group, well, the third one, because we've done the pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, medial pterygoid. Now we're going to do the masseters. Now the masseters, they're like muscles that come from the top of the jaw to the bottom side of the jawline. So it's sort of, you know, that sort of width, and that sort of height, and that sort of width. So we've got 3 triggers up at the top, 3 triggers in the middle, 3 triggers on the jawline. So if you were to get 1, 2, 3 fingers and just sort of explore Really, it's the cheekbone and just above, you know, the upper jaw where the teeth is to the zygomatic arch, which is the cheekbone. And just see, and you could also, at this point, you could use a ball. If you're using a ball, remember it's your face, and you're going to end up with a really red face, or maybe even a bruise if you go too strong. So fingers are probably ideal. You could just do cross fingers and just explore those 3 triggers through here. So for me, the upper ones seem fine. Try the middle ones. And then you've got some down on the jawline, actually on the line of the jaw. Can be really sore along here. So just 2 fingers. Oh, this one's nasty. So again, this one for me is next to where I've got the toothache. So these 2 are talking to each other. The trigger point is talking to the tooth, and the tooth is talking to the trigger point. So this one is particularly unhappy. So you could use your knobbler, as long as you're not too rough. You could use a ball. Fingers are perfect because you can feel the muscle. If you clench your teeth again, bite, you'll feel the masseter jump up. So for me, I found a particularly nasty trigger here. And again, I've got the referred pain into the eye, the ear, into the skull. So you can do ischemic pressure, 60 to 90 seconds of pressing, or you can do the rinsing massage. I've got my elbows on the bench, so my arm is supported and fairly relaxed. So when you do this, you've got upper ones, middle ones, ones on the jawline. You can do it from inside as well. So start by clenching, put the thumb in, and then just bite, don't bite your thumb, but bite down a little bit, and you'll feel this muscle jump up. And the same thing, you're angling up towards the upper triggers, the middle triggers, and down towards the jaw. So you can roll the muscle between the thumb and the fingers. You could just squeeze and release, squeeze and release. So it's a little bit like sponging. Very, very strong muscle. I'm going to go back to this one because for me, this is the one that's working the best. So super strong muscle. And so it gets very tense, very tight, very shortened and unhappy. So when you've done that, then think about the muscles that come this side. So the upper ones. So I found something going on in this one. So when I did the pterygoid, there was something up here that was unhappy. And again, I can feel it again with the masseters. So you just, if you think about the width of 3 fingers, you're just sort of exploring each of those places where the finger would be in the upper jaw, against the cheekbone, just under the cheekbone, really. You're not sure where the masseter is, bite, and there's the muscle. You can feel it really sort of plump up. Then you've got the ones in the middle. Oh, so this one's nasty as well. And then you've got the ones that are along the jawline. So you're exploring these 3 areas and looking for an active, unhappy trigger. So that's 9 trigger points, 3, 6, and 9, but maybe only one of them is active. So for me, this one was the only one that was active on this side. And this side, it's the upper one, the third one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So for me, number 3. So again, you can go inside the mouth and you're angling towards the upper ones, the middle ones, or the lower ones. Bite down and find the muscle. You're rolling between the thumb and the fingers. Quite a lot going on this side. If you've got, you carry on while I'm talking, but if you've had teeth removed, it affects the bite. So maybe one side of your jaw is more active because of the imbalance on the other side. Also, you've got to be super careful. We talked about this a while ago about having teeth removed, because if your bite changes, your brain perceives that teeth are missing. And then the brain feels very unstable through the vestibular system. And then it will fire up neck muscles, back muscles, pelvic muscles to try and feel grounded and connected to the floor. So it's very subjective, but the brain knows if you've got 2 teeth missing on one side, that your skull is no longer balanced, and then it will fire up all these peripheral muscles to try and create balance. So be really careful about having dental work done, because it can spin you off into a whole load of problems, from TMJ problems to, reactions in the body. Okay, so the next muscle group is the temporalis. So we've got, if we feel the side of the skull, you can feel there's a hollow there, an indentation. And so the temporalis muscle is like a fan. So it'd be like a fan that sort of goes from the hinge of the jaw, and it fans out, it covers that hollow, and it goes from the edge of the eye to about the middle of your ear. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 trigger points that are above the hollow indentation. So if this is the indentation, your triggers are sort of where my first finger is. So start just at the hairline. So you've got the indentation, you're going above, and just with your fingers, just do little small circles. But this is something that we instinctively do when we've got a tension headache. So you see people and they do this when they've got a headache, and it's because they know that, this muscle group is really tight and unhappy, and they know instinctively that they need to do this to relax the muscle. So I've got 2 fingers on trigger points either side, and it jumps straight up to a 7, 8 without me even trying to find it. So if we're biting and clenching in our jaw, if you've got TMJ syndromes, the tension is going to feed up through that muscle group that looks like a fan around from the jaw to the temple, and it's going to really, really cause pain. So we're going to get cluster headaches and all those weird symptoms like eyes watering and eyelids dropping and twitchy eyes and muffled sounds in the ear and, earache, and all these things can be caused by this. So then the second trigger, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one is sort of above the middle of the top of the earlobe. So the second one is in from the hairline. So just explore and see if you can find anything. You could do this with a ball. Like I say, fingers are always number 1 choice, but put a double finger on top so that the finger joints don't get tired. So again, there's tension here, and for me, it's on this side. So if everything painful is presenting on the left side, then maybe just think about gallbladder issues and whether you've got problems with that. The third one is moving in a bit. So above the indentations here, and we're out here. So it's sort of like an aura around the temples. So for me, that one doesn't feel too bad. And then middle of the ear. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So for me, it was really the first two. So if you figured out where yours are, just go back there. So I'm doing a sort of a circular movement, which is a form of rinsing. You're moving the blood and the lymph out of the muscles. You're bringing in fresh new blood. You're helping to get rid of toxins and also to help to stimulate endorphins in that area to be released and to turn off pain receptors. We were talking in one of our classes, I think it was my Monday class, that pain is not at the site. When we feel pain in our elbow, the pain is not in the elbow, it's in the brain, which is something to think about. So what is happening is the nerves are sensing that something is not right in the elbow and sending a pain message through the pain receptors, and the pain is felt in the brain. So this is why addressing the nervous system is always the better way to go. So the pain is there to alert you that maybe you've bumped your elbow, or you've got cramp in this muscle or whatever, but pain itself is actually in the brain. So it's something you've got to think about. So, once you've done the 4 trigger points, you could get a soft ball and you could massage around the temples. You could put your elbow on the bench, and you could move the ball, or you could move the head, or you could do both. If you found a nasty trigger, you could just hold the ball and just give yourself that 90 seconds to get the trigger point to switch off. Okay, so that is your temporalis. So the next one is your sternocleidomastoid. When I read the list of pain, the muscles that are involved with TMJ, the sternocleidomastoid was on most of them. So this muscle that goes from the collarbone to the mastoid process behind the ear. So if you feel the bump behind the ear, so sterno means sternum, cleido means clavicle, and mastoid process. So sternocleidomastoid. So if I was to turn my head to look to one side, you'll see this muscle jump up. So it's they're like reins on a horse. As you pull on these muscles, the head will turn. So they've got a lot to do, a lot of work to do. So you've got the beginning of it is at the top of the sternum, the breastbone. It's coming up here to the mastoid process. And also there's a second branch, which is about here. So we've got the sternal branch, and we've got the clavicular branch, which goes to the collarbone. So we're going to come to just above the collarbone here. So you turn away, you find the muscle. You're going to put your thumb on the opposite side. So we're doing the right side. Thumb, left hand thumb against the beginning of the sternocleidomastoid, and then 2 fingers on the other side, and we're squeezing. It's a little bit like you're milking a cow. So there's no pressure. We've got blood vessels that run down through here, and we've got nerves that run into under the collarbones here. So we're not ever pushing into the neck, we're pushing outwards that way. So the thumb is pushing towards the right, the 2 fingers are grabbing the sternocleidomastoid, and we're just squeezing and we're pulling down. Squeeze and release, squeeze and release. So we're checking. So we've got trigger points here, 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 and at the mastoid process. So we're just doing about 5 or 6 squeezes. So definitely for me, there's something going on here. It's quite tight. If you lose the muscle, just look away and the muscle jumps up, and then look forward again so the muscle softens. So thumb pushing towards the right, fingers just grabbing the outer band of the muscle. So now you'd come up about 1/4 of the way, and you would do the next area. So you divide your sternocleidomastoid into 4 zones: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. So for me, not so much here, but definitely activity at the collarbone. So then you come up again another 1/4. It gets a little bit harder as you get nearer to the skull because the muscle gets bigger as it goes up to the mastoid process. Something going on here. And then just under the ear, I find it quite hard to grab here. So what I tend to do is 2 fingers, I do a little bit of a rub. Okay. You can also, so that's your sternal branch. If you turn away, there's an indentation, and then you might feel a little bit of sinewy muscles here. So this is your clavicular branch. So you've got the big muscle here, and then you've got a little muscle that comes out towards the collarbone. So just when you do this one, just 1 finger, just gently rubbing across it. This one can be quite sharp and uncomfortable. You're not pushing into the neck, you're just rubbing across the muscle. And just that gentle rub, I'm using 2 fingers actually, just a gentle rub is enough to just help the muscle relax. So let's try the left side. You look to the right, the muscle jumps up. Put your right thumb against the inner border and 2 fingers on the outside, and you're squeezing. You squeeze and pull down. You're not pushing backwards into the neck. So again, this one's a little bit unhappy, but not as bad as this side. You can generally tell just by looking at yourself in the mirror. If you look at me, you can see that this side is much more pronounced than this side is. So you can even tell by looking if this muscle is overactive. So if this muscle is overactive, generally the traps on this side will be overactive, and even into this, the neck and into the face. So through the vagal system. So you come up a quarter of the way. Something going on here, a little bit unhappy. So the thumb is pushing to the left. The fingers are just gently squeezing the outer band, so you can feel that sinewy band of muscle. You're just squeezing it, but you're letting go. Squeeze and release, so that if you were pressing on a blood vessel, you're not stopping the blood flow to the brain. Good. And then you come up another quarter. If you lose the muscle, look to the right, find the muscle, and come back again. So coming up in quarters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I'm on the 3rd one. When you do these muscles, you don't do them for extended periods of time. You don't want to irritate them, but little and often is the best way to do neck muscles. And then under the ear, you can feel where that thick band of muscle is coming towards the mastoid process. Hard to grab it here, so maybe just 2 fingers doing a little bit of a rub. So the rule of thumb with neck muscles is you don't do both sides at the same time, because you might be accidentally pushing on the blood vessels, and then that would, would be seriously a dangerous thing to do. You're never pushing into the neck, because we have residues of plaque also that build up on blood vessels, and so we don't want to be massaging blood vessels and loosening plaque that could start to float around and cause problems. Pretty scary stuff to talk about, but you just remember that here you've got your jugular carotid artery and your jugular vein, so you're avoiding those 2 really big blood vessels. So if you were to, you've got the main branch here, and then if you indentation, and then you'll feel there's maybe a little bit of a sinewy smaller muscle coming down. That's your clavicular branch of your sternocleidomastoid. So 2 fingers, just do a little bit of a rub. So these are the muscles for the TMJ syndromes. And like I say, you could just see now, if you open your jaw, stretching, so you hold your chin, stretch. So you're not biting down, because that's going to tense the muscles. You're working their opposing muscles. You hold the chin and gently stretch and yawn. And do that 4 or 5 times. and hopefully it feels slightly improved. So the next muscle group we're going to look at now are the shoulders. So the deltoids. So we've got a medial deltoid in the middle. We've got an anterior deltoid and a posterior. When we've got pain in the anterior deltoid, so you can just feel with your fingers. So it looks like 1, 2, 3. And, you know, on someone muscular, you can see that formation in the shoulder. So you're just finding the front of the shoulder. There's usually a trigger right in the middle. You could use a ball. Okay. When we've got an active trigger here, it's usually your biceps. That usually is, so an active trigger here is a satellite trigger that's caused by a master trigger, usually in the biceps. So just sort of, I'm using the ball now to save my fingers. And if there's any sort of tenderness here, yes, there is. You could just, you know, do your 12 rinsing strokes. And then, you know, if it is tender, maybe then you're going to just come into the middle of the biceps. You've got 2 heads, you've got 1 head, 2 heads to the biceps. So you're in the middle. So it looks like this, and you could just check out the biceps. Okay, so try with your thumb, try with your finger. And definitely for me, the finger one is a little bit active. If it's the thumb one, just be careful that you have a big blood vessel. Your brachial artery goes down through here, and the brachial nerve as well. So if it feels a little bit sort of sharp and edgy, just move off of it slightly, because you might be on the artery or the vein. If you feel the pulse, it's the artery. If it feels a little bit sharp, it might be the nerve. And maybe while you're doing this, maybe you're just wiggling your fingers. So the interesting thing about biceps is just checking my notes here, but biceps, overactive triggers in the biceps can send pain into the shoulder, but it can also cause what's called tennis elbow, where you've got pain towards the outside of the elbow. It's called tennis elbow, and it's usually to do with the muscles above and below. So it can be forearm muscles, it can be bicep muscles. So when you've got pain, sometimes, very occasionally, the pain is local to where the issue is, but maybe it's above or below where you're feeling the pain. So with trigger point work, you look above and below and just check. So for me, that one is a little bit. And if you move the fingers, you might even be able to feel the bicep moving through the fascial system. You might feel there's a connection there. So then you've got the middle muscle of the shoulder, which is the bigger one. You've got about 4 or 5 triggers in the middle here. And you could just roll the ball around, or you could do this one against the wall, a ball in the sock. So, you know, if this one's firing up, it's probably just because you've done a lot of heavy work with your arms, you know, gardening, whatever. And then there's one at the back as well, which is right in the middle. So you've got a small band at the back. If you hold your shoulder where your middle finger is, that's generally where you'll find that trigger if it's active. So you could just press the ball. You could use a knobbler. I've got this one, which is quite good for getting into these sort of places. Yep, there it is. And again, you could do the finger movement just to make that connection. Okay. So let's do the other side. So we've got the small band at the front, right in the middle. Ouch, ouch, ouch. This one's very unhappy. Right-handedness. So that means this muscle group is much more active. So maybe it's my biceps. I'm just going to give the satellite a little bit of attention. So we decided that we'd do the rinsing stroke, maybe the thumb. The thumb's pretty good. So, you know, if you're weed eating, whatever, digging, whatever, hammering, then this, you know, the biceps is going to get overworked, the forearm muscles, the biceps, and then this small shoulder muscle is going to fire up. You could just sit in the evenings and you could just gently massage. So if this one is active, then check out your biceps. So you go to the middle of the upper arm. You've got one head on one side, one head on the other. So that looks like a thumb and a first finger. So the thumb one is quite close to the brachial artery and nerve. So just make sure there's no pulse there. There's no sort of sharp pain, and just, explore that area. And then the finger is the upper head. So bi means two and seps means head. So triceps means 3 heads, biceps 2 heads. And again, you could use a ball. The problem with doing a lot of work with the fingers and the thumbs is they do get tired after a while. So that's when it's quite handy to get a ball to do the work for you. So we're wiggling the fingers. And then the upper head. Yeah, they're both unhappy. So right-handedness means, or left-handedness means, that you're going to use those muscles more. So they're more likely to be unhappy and irritated. Then we had the medial deltoid, so the muscle in the middle. And there's a whole cluster here of 5 triggers, 5 trigger points, just sort of spaced out anywhere in that muscle. So you can use a ball like this, or you could go against the wall and you could press. And then the one at the back, to find it, hold your shoulder, and it's going to be where your middle finger is. And then you can use the knobbler or the ball in the sock against the wall. That's it. So I found it nicely with my knobbler. So triceps, back of the arm, if you get what's called golfer's elbow, which is more on the inside of the elbow, golfer's elbow is often coming from the triceps, the pectoral muscles, the triceps, and sometimes the muscle of the thumb as well. So the triceps, we've got trigger points just above the elbow. So if you were to put 1, 2, thumb and first finger above the elbow, so there's my elbow, quite a bit up from the elbow, that's where the muscle connects into the elbow. So if the triceps get shortened and tightened and irritated from gardening or manual work, then you sometimes get that aching elbow, numbness in the fingers. It's coming from above. You've got trigger points here. You've got trigger points in the middle. So you've got 3 heads. You've got 1, 2, 3. So, if you just feel around in the middle of the back of the arm, so maybe just hold the arm and just move your fingers around, pushing into the bone, the humerus, you'll find anything that's unhappy through here. And then one at the back of, you've got the armpit, where the arm goes into the armpit, just come forward a bit. There's a trigger point here, which is quite a nasty one. And this one is usually the one that's influencing golfer's elbow. So it's here, right at the top. So the armpit, where the top of the armpit is, come into the upper arm a little bit. And I'm using my middle finger, and there's definitely a very unhappy tricep trigger point there. So again, you could just move the fingers. See, if you do this with AI, you get the thumbs up. Not going to do it now. It's too clever. There you go. Thumbs up. I don't know if that shows on the video. We'll see. Okay, so triceps. So 2 above the elbow, 3 in the middle here, 1 for each head of the triceps, and then 1 right at the top where it attaches into the top of the arm. Let's try the other side. 2 above the elbow, keep an eye on the time. 3 in the middle. Again, ball in the sock against the wall. You could maybe do a little bit of this, but it's a bit too painful. So arm muscles like calves, they work really hard. They don't generally let you know that they're unhappy. And then the back of the armpit comes slightly forward into the upper arm, and just see if that trigger point. So for me, that one's not too bad. So it was definitely, there's the thumbs up again. It's definitely a right-handed thing for me. So we're moving speedily on because we're nearly out of time. So triceps, forearms. We could, if you look at the thumb, come up to here, there's a really good trigger point on the thumb line. I'll see if I get my thumbs up again. So here, so you can feel the extensor that comes up from the thumb. Big thick muscle here. If you press your thumb into that and wiggle your thumb. So again, this is linked into tennis elbow. This one's more tennis elbow, which is felt on the outside of the elbow. If you were to go onto the inside of the elbow towards the line of the little finger into the deep muscle, there's a trigger point here. So, you know, you could just roll the ball along the forearm and you could just work the extensors. Working through, and you could use the ball on the top side. You can work all the way down, but its trigger points tend to be where the tendon branches into the muscle. So where the tendon starts to widen into muscle, that's where the nerve endings are really profuse, and that's where they'll get fired up and unhappy. And then finally, so we got the thumb side. Do it on the other side. So thumb side, deep forearm muscles. So we use our fingers a lot. So these muscles always getting tight. It's good to just, you could sit here of an evening and just massage into these painful places. We've got the thumb line. So that brings you into the outside of the inner side of the elbow, into the deep muscle. You can use the ball here. So you could just work along the forearm muscles, wiggle the fingers. It was really lovely, actually, just to work the arms, the forearms. So then another one that's really important is called the hypothenar. It's the mound at the bottom of your thumb. So if you were to just work, so it's this mound here, you can do it by squeezing with your thumb, wiggling your fingers. So you've got your hypothenar and your thenar. So there's a mound here and there's a mound here. So you can just, with a ball, you choose how hard the ball is. So this is the hypothenar, and then this is the thenar. So where the muscles of the forearm come from the elbow into the fingers, then, you know, the tension will be feeding up from using our hands. So we're going right to the very furthest out point from the elbows. We can do the palm, that feels nice. And we can even go across the carpal tunnel. Not too much pressure because we've got blood vessels and nerves here, but a little bit of pressure. And there's a good point to look at, which is just below the wrist bone here. If you feel with your thumb, you could do it with the thumb or you could do it with the ball. So again, the other side, the hypothenar is the mound of the thumb. Wiggle the fingers. The thenar is the outside mound. And the palm, you spread your fingers. So this would be like doing it as we do it on our feet when we do the foot massage. Hands are even more mobile than feet. And so it's really good to give our hands a bit of attention. And then we did the carpal tunnel going across, but not too much pressure. Just massage. And then we find the wrist bone and we're just here. Wiggle the fingers. I got it all done. I actually got it all done in the time. That very rarely happens.